All right, good morning and welcome to the Real Estate Heavyweights podcast. And we are back with another amazing interview with our friend Mark Fuller, Tavis's friend. They've known each other for a long time, done business in the Plano area for a long time. And when Tavis was talking about guys he wanted to bring on, this was definitely at the top of his list. So we got Mark today. Beautiful day. It's December here, not cold. It does not feel like Christmas just yet. I'm wearing a hoodie out of protest because that's pretty much all I wear. But I wish it was colder outside because there's Christmas decorations everywhere and all that stuff. But anyway, I'm Ashton Hines. I'm part of the Real Estate Heavyweights. I'm the newbie. I'm working on flip number 4. I've been a real estate agent for a little over 2 years, and we are finishing up flip number 4 right now. But one of the guys that's helping me out a ton, I bought my last flip from him. I bought a long-term rental from him. His name is Tavis Westbrook. What's up, Tavis?
What's up? Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, good morning. Well, Tavis, we were kind of brainstorming a few months ago about what we wanted this podcast to be. And we definitely want to bring you interviews with people that are working in the flip and investment area, specifically in the DFW area. And last week we had George Roddy. If you haven't listened to that, you got to go listen to that. He's got some pretty crazy stories. I highlighted it on the Instagram, but at one point in his career, he was riding around in his car with about $50 million in cashier's checks. So you have to go listen to that story. So no pressure, Mark. I don't expect that you ride around with $50 million in your pocket, but we are super excited to have you here. So welcome, Mark Fuller. Why don't you go ahead and get it started? Introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us how you got into the real estate game, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, real estate was just it's like a few things in my life. You can't really plan everything, right? And real estate just happened to be one of those things I have ADHD, so I get bored, pretty easy. I guess you guys probably get that. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs do. And, I was in the GNC business, General Nutrition Center business, before I did this, and which was perfect for my point, for my life at that time, because I was into bodybuilding. I have a bodybuilding background, and was just mesmerized by bodybuilding from an early age. And so GNC was the natural fit for me, and had a partner. We had a few stores, and much like a lot of things, in my life, I felt like I maxed it out. And, if I'm not improving, I get bored, I mean, I want to be better every single year. I want to improve. I want to hit my goals, and so forth. But that's where I was at GNC at that time. So I started thinking, I really want to do something else. And, I was considering a few different things. And so I talked to my partner. I said, man, I'm done. And so he and I think I was doing the majority of the work in that business. I don't know if he was, exactly happy, about that, but he bought me out. And I said, you know what, I'm going to jump all into this real estate thing. And, my family and friends, they thought I was crazy. They're like, what are you doing? You got this great life and you're making money and obviously it's a little bit more than money. I want to make money, and I think everybody does, but I'm a big believer at the end of the day, you got to enjoy what you're doing, and if you don't enjoy it, man, it's hard for me to think that I could make enough money that would help me overcome just hating what I do, and
so did you have a construction background, or what made you think there's stocks, there's other companies, there's other franchises, what made you think I'm gonna go into real estate? Did you have some friends doing it that you thought looked like it was a good idea, or what was going on?
I had nothing.
What year was this, Mark?
This was around the middle to end of 2005.
Okay.
So that's when I started thinking about,
So that's
I'm ready to do something else.
and when
So
did the GNC stores start kind of dwindling down? I mean, when did the internet start taking over? You know,
well, not at
most of
this point.
these. Not at
Yeah,
that point. Okay, yeah,
not at
that
this
happened. That happened later because I know. I mean, you can find a few, you know, health food stores similar to that, right? Or nutrition based stores, but they're definitely not what they used to be, right?
No, not now. I mean,
Yeah.
I
So
got
I mean, I
out.
would say you probably made the right decision.
Yeah, I got out. Yeah, man, looking back, I would hate to be in that business now, but GNC taught me that there is there's so much competition in Dallas Fort Worth,
Yeah.
and I know I hear that about a lot of different places, but I knew even in GNC, I mean, I knew so many of the franchisees across the nation, and it's crazy how much more. Let's just say Nebraska. Nebraska is a great example. 500,000 population in like Omaha, and their stores, one of the stores there was doing double what I was doing.
Hmm.
And, and I found that to be the case across a lot of businesses. So, competition, get used to it. I'm used to it. So, Dallas Fort Worth, a lot of investors, a lot of the bigger companies and so forth. Man, we got competition. So anyway, with GNC and so forth, yeah, that was a little bit before it started taking off with internet. And it really wasn't, I really didn't even take that into consideration. Honestly,
Yeah.
I was just tired of my bodybuilding career had been winding down, and that was a big motivation for me. The bigger I was, the more in shape I was, the more money I made. With selling sports supplements and all that. So that was just winding down. Yeah, and I was just getting pretty much bored.
So you were done. You checked out. You said, "Okay, I'm done with this. I'm selling out my shares." You sold out to your partner. This is 2005. So
Well,
this is right at
it
the
was 1st of 2006. This
okay.
basically bought me out in the 1st of 2006, and I had already started educating myself on real estate about
And of
3
course,
months before.
of course, 2004, 2005 here in Dallas and real estate was actually pretty good years, right? So that was pretty exciting to see what was going on in 2005 and 4 or 2005 and 2006, and then obviously make the decision to go into real estate at that time. So give us a little bit of insight on that. Obviously, you go into it, you're excited, you get in, and then obviously, mortgage crisis happens, bottom falls
And then
out
the
of
bottom
real
dropped
estate.
out. And I'm like, I'm just like, seriously, Lord, it's like I really thought you were pushing me in this direction, and it was depressing,
Yeah.
because at that point, man, I didn't really know. I didn't. I'm still trying to figure out how to run this business. How am I going to do this? And all of a sudden, I'm like, well, this business, how is it going to work for anyone? And how am I going to sell? How am I going to sell these houses, right?
So what type of real estate were you doing it to? Were you wholesaling or flipping, or were you an actual realtor? Like what branch of the business were you doing?
No, I started with the intent of flipping.
Okay.
I want to buy property, I want to add value to it, and I want to sell it.
Okay.
And that's what I did. So I started in 06, and for 06 and 07, and I guess it's that's when they were giving anybody a mortgage. It's like you didn't have to worry about anybody qualifying. Appraisal, you didn't have to worry about anything. 100% financing. So even though even though I was learning the business, I was still able to sell, there for a year and a half, 2 years. And then that's when that changed. So I was I was pretty much buying everything. Had never, for the first couple of years, had never wholesaled anything, you know.
What did your
Uh,
volume look like? Well, about how many were you doing in your first year? 2006. How many flips do you think you did then?
oh, that in 2006, I three, you
Three.
know.
Okay.
I started full time in March of '06, and I mean, you know, uh, didn't have a network, didn't have wholesalers sending me deals, didn't uh, really just educate myself.
Were you
So
buying
a lot.
were you buying MLS, or where were you finding your deals at the time?
No, no, I've never bought I've never bought a house off the MLS.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
like the thing was, I had heard a little bit about that. So I'll tell you who I went to. I went to a Ron LeGrand seminar, right? And that was the first of 2006. So I went to that even before I sold my interest in GNCs. And Ron LeGrand, I mean, what a sales guy, you know. I remember sitting there thinking, he's talking about people calling us to sell their house. And, for years I had, even in GNC, I'd seen those, I see the trucks driving by, and it's like I see the advertisements for We Buy Houses or whatever here and there. And it's like, how are those guys doing that? And so I was always a little curious about that. But Ron LeGrand's talking about this. I'm like, people calling me? That's what I want. I don't want a cold call. I don't want a door knock. I don't want to do any of that. So took very little from Ron LeGrand, and figured out really quickly that, man, some of the stuff he's talking about, it's selling his products. It's not going to work. And even before I really knew a ton about the business, when I just thought about it, some of the stuff was just pretty logical. That's I don't see how that's going to work. But so I started concentrating on how did I get my phone to ring.
Yeah.
And I spent money, and I tell people, how do you learn this business? Well, for me, I had to spend money. I spent money because I felt like I went to school basically on buying, information and educating myself. I went to 2 or 3 seminars for people that, and one guy in particular, Richard Roop and Dan Duran. I flew to Atlanta. That changed my business. So, and these guys were all about, they were all about marketing. It's like, how are you gonna get your phone to ring? You better send something out to someone that lets them know that, hey, that I buy houses. And
Right.
so they were all about marketing. Man, this was just also new. And it was exciting and scary all at the same time. And it was like just this whole different world, things that I was learning that I just never knew. And so I was totally consumed by it, but I spent a lot of money.
So when you say you spent money, I mean, at the time, I imagine that you and I've talked in the past, so I know that you've got a pretty good mailing campaign. So is that pretty much primarily where you spent the dollars to basically do mailers and do direct mail campaign? Is that pretty much your background?
Yeah. And to this day, I still do mainly mail, snail mail.
Yeah.
My thing was, one thing I've learned, you hear so much stuff, right? I mean, you hear so much stuff. We're the information age, and this sounds great. You hear this person talk about this, and you're like, wow, that sounds great. And you hear this person say, the so-called experts or whatever, they talk about, no, that doesn't work. They're blah, blah, blah. What I found was, well, guess what? I just got to spend money. I got to hit these people over and over and over again and be consistent with that. And it's tough to spend $10,000 to $15,000 a month. And but it's something that if you're going to be successful in this, I mean, and buy a consistent amount of homes, yeah, you just have to.
So Mark, so we're talking about, Tavis and I have been talking about some marketing stuff, and Tavis has always been really great about agent outreach. I'm new to all this, so it's sort of whatever I try will pretty much be the first thing. So do you door knock? Do you get on a mail campaign? Do you figure out how to have a website that people go to? So I imagine, especially back early on, you're transitioning from GNC, you're putting real money into it. What was that first taste of, okay, I think this might work? I mean, I imagine you got a call, you went out and you comped a house. Like, talk us through that first kind of like experience of like, okay, I think this might work, but now I know it's going to work.
I mean, it took the first deal. It takes, even when you believe it, you never really believe it until, I don't feel like you believe it as much as you want to believe it until you see some evidence of it.
That's right.
And my first deal, and you know what? I say I say mailing, some of this stuff, man, I've even forgot. So now I'm forced to think about it, but it's like my first deal didn't come off mail. It came off the sign off of my truck.
Okay.
And it came off the sign on my buddy's truck. Actually, Robert, I convinced Robert for the first couple of years to put my sign on his truck. And I paid him, I don't know, $100 a month or something. I went to high school with this guy, and he was at a Home Depot. Yeah, and someone saw the sign on his truck, called me, and it was actually it was actually created. I didn't buy the house outright. I got the guy to deed me the property and then get paid when we sold the property.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
And which...
It's like a novation. Is that what they call a novation, basically, where they kind of give you the right to rehab it and then sell it, and they take a piece of it? Is that?
Well, that was novation before I knew what novation was.
Okay.
Yeah. That was called. I don't have money.
Yep.
And so I've got to figure out, how am I going to do this? How am I going to buy all these houses?
Yep.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to get creative. So, and this just happened to fit that. This just happened to kind of fit that mold of what someone, when you're in a tough situation, you'll consider other things and so forth. And it actually turned out to be good for them.
So Mark, give us just a quick snapshot of what that deal looked like. What did you deed it for? What was the rehab in it? How long did the project take? What did you make on it? Just as your first deal. That said, hey, I'm a believer in this. Let's keep going.
Well, I remember this. It was a deal in Rockwall, Becky Lane in Rockwall. I still remember the street. I can remember barely seeing the lake, from the back patio.
Yeah.
So when I looked at it, I was pretty excited about that. But I know the guy owed like 120. 120 is worth ARV on it. I think we sold it for, maybe 220, 230, as far as what I can remember. And I did give the guy, he was behind on the mortgage, so I made that up. But I told him I would give him another. It was like $5,000 or $6,000.
Yeah,
walk away money. Yeah.
Plus he'd get his, part of that. I guess part of what I was. Part of the sale, I guess, too, was telling him, you're going to get your escrow money back, too,
So you basically did like a subject to, but had a few asterisks on it, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna keep your mortgage alive. I'm gonna catch you up, and then I'm gonna give you a bonus here if we do this and this. So So you buy it for 120. You think you sold it for around 220, 230. What do you think you put into it back then? And what was your net return on that?
Yeah, I mean, I put in probably somewhere around 40.
Okay.
40.
That used to be the deal, man. I used to think about that. Like I buy a deal for 120. I put 40 into it, sold for 200. That was like the math back in 2009, 2010.
Making 15 to 20K on a deal and so forth. There are times where you're thinking that's pretty good, and back then, I mean, we cleared. After everything, I just remember after everything was said and done, realizing how much more expense there was to this business than what I thought, or what I had hoped. So, but I think I cleared almost 30, on that deal. And and just getting the experience.
That gave you a taste.
And, then, there's no better way to learn than just do.
Heck yeah. That reminds me a lot about my first deal. So. I think I've told Tavis, but my very first deal ended up being a wholesale deal. It was it was about 2 years ago. And similarly, like I didn't really know how I was going to buy it, but I was just presented with this opportunity to buy a house that was distressed. And I had my real estate license and they were just wanting some help to sell it. And I offered, I said, well, if I could buy it, would you be interested? And they said, sure. And I had a runway because it was a probate. And so I knew that I had some time while they were doing all the legal stuff to figure out my financing, but I had decided that's what I wanted to do. And whenever you have that opportunity and you've made that your mind up, you start getting real creative. And so actually I cashed out a little bit of a retirement account. I cashed out a little bit of a 401k or borrowed against myself because I had a retail client who had done that for a down payment. So yeah, there's no replacement for actually doing it, because up until then I had read books and watched videos and talked to people ad nauseum. And it's not until you actually just jump in and figure it out that you learn just so much more. And it's not just the learning the logistics, it's that belief, it's that self-belief that all of a sudden, okay, I can actually do this. And then you move forward and you just can't replace that. You can't learn that from a book or anything like that. So very, very similar. So after you got that,
figuring out the why and then the how will just kind of appear.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, so you got that first deal, you had 3 deals your first year, you got into the mortgage crisis and you're like, what the heck? So how did I assume you had sold GNC at this point. So now you're full-time real estate. You have a funnel going, you've got some mailers going. So how did you navigate that next 2 or 3 years that was pretty much a crisis for everyone in the industry where prices were just tanking?
I kept spending money, kept spending money. At this point, I'm still trying to figure things out. I think even if the market was normal, if it had continued and not even hit the bottom like it did, not even tank, I think it would still been a challenge, and then now I have this other thing thrown on top of it. And it's like, okay, I think because I was so new that all I knew is to continue what I'd started. And that was basically spending money, learning. I bought it several different. I was really looking into marketing. I was really looking into, I didn't want to be the first to invent something, so it's like, okay, who's got something out there? What are these people using? And, what are just my options? I mean, I'm trying to look at everything, I'm trying to learn everything. I'm trying to figure out. I mean, I can't make decisions sometimes because I just don't know what the options are, So
were you keeping pretty good track? I know a lot of guys, they're very meticulous about their conversion rate, and they'll A/B test, and they'll do a postcard that's yellow, and they'll do were you kind of keeping track so you kind of knew which one was successful, or were you just kind of like, man, I'm going to go with this for a while. I got a few calls. Let's do that again. Like what was your system at the time? Or now? I mean, I'm interested too. Like, how has that evolved to now?
Metrics, KPIs, all that lingo and everything else. I don't come from a business background, and with GNC, it's just looking at things a little bit differently than this. So, how was I tracking stuff? Man, I wasn't. And that's one thing that I stress to people. I guess now it's like, okay, what do I wish I'd done? Maybe a little bit sooner. that was, yeah,
So Mark, we got a lot more to cover, but just kind of going through. So when the mortgage crisis happened, right? So what was the biggest thing that you think um, you saw in the business? Was it obviously you're pumping money into the business for marketing. You're getting the phone to ring. You're getting leads. You're getting opportunity. And I remember, yeah, obviously there was a market, because I started on the flip side in 2009, and that was when kind of the banks weren't lending, so it was cash opportunities, it was REO opportunities, and it was opportunity to buy stuff that needed heavier work that people were kind of running away from, right? So like that's when we started doing a lot of houses that needed foundation work back then. But for you, what was it that you were challenged with mostly during that time? You got your lead source working, you're getting the phone to ring. Was it days on market on the backside? Was it rehab, stuff that you had to kind of learn through the curve? I mean, what were some of your biggest challenges going through that time? And then, kind of fast forward us up to, the last, the last 10, 12 years and kind of what you're doing today and some of the challenges that you're seeing in today's market.
Yeah. 2007, 2008. Yeah, I think I was talking about it. Just knew it was going to be harder to sell the properties. So I continued advertising and so forth, but that's when I switched over to, started considering wholesaling. And I figured, okay, this is it's going to make more sense. Let me back up for a second, because part of it was at this point, I started focusing on raising funds. I've never used a bank, so that was part of it. I knew if I was going to buy more stuff, I better get more money. So I was until I had as much money as what I needed, then it made more sense just to get rid of some of these properties and start wholesaling. So I switched to, by mid to end of 2008, and then going forward, yeah, I switched. I probably was wholesaling 75% of the properties. And, wow. Wow, I wish I just remember at Mesquite, I was buying properties for $20,000. It's like,
holy
cow, you have a do-over. How many of those does it take to be worth something today? It's like, yeah,
no
I'd have kept 10 of those, but I remember my first wholesale deal when I sold one in Mesquite. I bought it for 20 and wholesaled it for 30, and made 10. And back then the margins on the flipping they're not what they are now. And so $10,000, I was like, this is great, but it's not all I wanted to do, but it's what I had to do at the time. So that's kind of how I weathered the storm. I went to wholesaling more stuff and was a little bit more careful on the stuff that we kept and flipped. Obviously it was all about the numbers.
All right. So we got through the crisis. We're here kind of modern day, like today. And so what does your business look like? Are you our sole, person that works in your business? Do you have people that help you out? Are you like, what's your flow of and what are you spending? You don't have to get into all the details, but what are you kind of looking like every month to generate how many deals? Are you sending out 1,000 pieces of mail and you're getting 1 or 2 deals a month, or kind of what does your business volume look like these days?
Well, you know what? Everything kind of changed, a little bit from, I say, like a lot of us do now, pre-COVID, post-COVID. And because, typically up until COVID, 2019, I was averaging 25 to 30 houses a year. So then COVID hit, and I have an assistant in the office, and by the end of 2020, I let her go, and we just weren't getting the calls. I was having to get creative on getting deals and so forth. But that changed just a little bit. I actually cut my advertising back some, and what I've done is, I think now, to speed up, I started figuring out, okay, how am I going to maximize and how am I going to make the most money off of each deal? And how am I going to smooth this process out and control costs? And obviously with the great product still going out. So really I started concentrating on, okay, I'm going to do less deals, but I'm going to do more money per deals. And that's kind of where I'm at now. And I think that, last year, 2022, that was, it's crazy, man. I'm buying half the amount of houses now, but I'm making more than twice the amount of money per deal, so I started maximizing that. I think one thing in this business is, part of it has to be, how much money do you want to make? And you got to reverse engineer it, right? And so everybody's different there, and in this day and age where, oh my God, if I hear stuff like got to grind one more time and maximizing and everything that you're going to hear, all this rah bullshit that you get from it, it's part of the reason that almost I wanted to stop networking. It's crazy as it sounds, and I probably got a little bit too negative about it, but there really is no right or wrong way to do some of this stuff. It's a matter of what do you want? I mean, you're the boss, you're the owner, you can do things however you want. I just knew that I wanted to make, X amount of money, X amount of dollars, and still have enough freedom to do, a lot of the other stuff that I wanted to do. And, the first 10 years of this business, I was a workaholic, and I mean, I'd spend the night. I would literally, so many times I'd wake up and my head was slung over on my desk, and yeah, I didn't even go home. I just fell asleep because you got to grind, man. Grind. The balance thing is very important because I have a family, and, I missed a lot of stuff, for my kids being a little bit younger and so forth. So yeah, I think part of the equation is, you got to start off with trying to look at things in a balanced perspective. And for some people, it's going to vary from individual to individual, but I think bottom line is, do you want to try to scale something, or do you want to keep it more manageable and more controlled? And for me, I'm so much a control freak that sometimes that's limited. That's limited maybe how big I could have pushed my business and so forth. But I think that's part of the equation, right? It's like how much do you want to do yourself? How much money do you want to make? And then you have to think about it in terms of that. So that would determine like how many houses you need to buy. And then, so how much advertising do you need to do? How much money would you have to spend? How many employees will you need? I've just gotten really good at managing. I mean, in this business, if you can manage contractors, then that's simply the majority of your work. I mean, a lot of stuff, managing people over the phone, setting things up, organizing, scheduling, staying on top of costs and so forth. But that's going to vary from person to person.
Sure.
So lead source, what I'm hearing is it's all about getting leads, right? You've got to get your lead sources in, you've got to get the phone to ring. And then the next thing would be building your team and just having a solid team. One of the things, Mark, you and I've been friends for many years now. It's always been interesting because the way that I've ran my business and my teams is pretty much all subbed out, right? Like I don't have any all around guys, right? Everybody's an individual sub versus you kind of have the same crew that goes house to house. And that gets you tight sometimes, right? Because it's hard for you to do multiple houses at the same time because you've kind of got one crew that's at one place. And then the other thing, I know in our recent conversations, you talked about having kind of more GC base now. Is that currently where you're at, or what's your dynamic look like right now?
Well, the payment, the way that we did. Okay, so long ago, it's going back. I realized, what the more people I had come to my houses, the more that it costs, right? Um, it's like, so if I can get more of an umbrella type of structure going on with contractors and so forth, then I'm going to be able to control the cost a little bit. So uh, I I basically hired initially contractors and so forth that they work for me, paid them a salary. They work for me and only me. That way, it it that way I always had someone. They controlled the costs. They were happy. I was happy. My guy that's been with me, Joel, is my he's my general contractor. He's my project manager. He's been with me for 15 years. I'm really blessed that to have that guy. But he knows exactly how I like the houses. He manages everything, and we do multiple houses. We just got done doing 3 houses, so it's like I've got another crew too, like the C team basically. So Joel, he manages 2 crews. When we get to 2 houses with them, I've got another crew that does lower end stuff. But there for a while, with them, it was basically 1 house at a time, and we've gotten past that just a little bit. Hey, I've had to train Joel. The great thing about having him is someone like him is, I help him manage. I've trained him how to manage, and it's actually put a lot more money in his pocket. But I think trying to provide that value is why he's stuck with me, and he's great at what he does, man. This guy can go out on his own, and if he was doing stuff for homeowners, he could probably kill it, but he just doesn't know how to do that. He's just not great at the business side of it. So I've tried to help him. But yeah, I structure things like I like to put guys on salary and control the cost there just a little bit. Plus, it's like I can send them anywhere that I want to. But everybody's
Yeah,
but
that's
I still
smart.
have my other guys, foundation guys, a roofer, foundation guy, roofer. I have an electrician that does some of the stuff, but most of my guys do everything. They do the plumbing. We're about to do another house, cast iron, replace all the cast iron. My guys they'll do the panel boxes. They can rewire the entire house, all the plumbing, all the windows. They don't do things like carpet. Still have a carpet company that does carpet, but having your crews, the more that they can do, the more money you're going to save.
So are you wholesaling anymore, or are you mainly flipping now?
The last house I wholesaled was the beginning of last year, 2022. That's the thing. Okay, so I went nothing against wholesalers, but if you want to do that and do that as a main business, well, yeah, you do need to build your staff up. You're going to be busy, and you're going to be busy, and then you're dealing with. I just didn't like it. I just don't like. I didn't like having to deal. It's a double whammy. You're having to deal with homeowners, then you have to deal with investors, investor buyers, which can be a beat down. So when I try to keep everything, when I ran the numbers and looked at my bottom line, keeping everything and flipping, even if I sometimes think I can make enough, close to enough for a wholesale deal, I'm telling you, every single time, it's like with a flip, I've looked back and I'm like, man, I can't believe I was thinking about wholesaling that house, because I make 30 or 40K more, by keeping it and everything. Even if I have to keep something, like I've got, I got a house right now that I bought in June that's still sitting there, because I know it doesn't matter. It's gonna be, it's gonna I'm going to make more off of it just by holding it. So that's why I'm looking at everything now. And I'd have
It's a bird in the hand, right?
well, and I got to keep, man, I got to keep my guys busy on some stuff too. And I don't mind letting certain things just sit there. And this one, I mean, it's a property, it's my own money. So I'm not paying interest or anything. So I don't care about stuff like that. But keeping these things and fixing them up, you're going to make more money than wholesaling. And I'd have to do 5 to 6x, on deals to make close to what I'm making now by wholesale.
Are you self-funding most everything, or are you using banks more, private lending? How do you typically do your deals?
When I started, I reached out to my warm list. It's like, man, I'm going to need to raise some funds, right? I had some money, but I realized that I was going to do, if you're going to do more than a couple, boy, you can really roll through some money, quick. So I started raising funds, started calling people that I knew, even old customers, from my GNC days. That's one of my first private individuals, money guys, was from GNC, and we had always hit it off. So I've never used banks. I use now I'll use I'm self-funding on some things. Other things I have, I've got a couple mil in private money, and then basically I've had to change just a little bit because I just lost my biggest investor, which is a buddy of mine who I met when I was wholesaling. You meet a lot of people, right, by wholesaling, and I sold him. I bet you I've sold him 20 something houses, and we just we got along, and he started funding my deal. He's just like, we're good buddies now, but he's just like, man, you don't need, I'll fund everything. And he was funding everything at 6% there for quite a while. And now he's going through a divorce, and basically that changed that. He's getting ready to pay out probably a big chunk. So now I'm doing something for the first time that I haven't had to do in years, and that's starting to raise a little bit more capital. So, but that's
nice.
How I buy everything. And I've never used banks, but I am talking to a couple right now, just for the holding, a little bit more on the holding side.
Awesome. So Mark, real quick, just to wrap this up, what would be your one-liner advice to anybody just getting into this business in today's market? And then how can we best help your business going forward?
My biggest saying is always educate yourself. To me, it's amazing how much information we have access to. Look at Chat GPT. It's changing the game, and I'm already using it in my business. And I think people have no excuse to learn probably almost anything about what we do, right? It's just a matter of applying that.
Just real quick, how are you using?
Get good at raising money or finding money, because you're going to need capital. This is a capital intensive business, and I think a lot of people fall for that no money down stuff that they see online. It's like, good luck with that. Not going to work.
Just real quick, how are you using ChatGPT for your business? Is it for copy, for your mailers, or how are you using it?
Yeah, most of it's for copywriting. I'll use I'll use it on the messing around with it for descriptions on my listings. I'm using it for I'm concentrating on trying to automate stuff. It's like, can I get some of this stuff off my plate by learning some of this? So I'm trying to learn even the plugins and extension. It's just it's how much stuff. It's mind-boggling, right? It's overwhelming, but I figure we're all gonna need that going forward.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like if you're, a lot of people probably, I'm sure you think about this too, though, Tavis, because when I think about it, I think about the day of realtors is coming to an end. And I think eventually everything is just going to be so automated. It's, it's become normal now to sell your house. I think they're an investor. Remember when that was such a stigma? Used to be. Now it's become more normalized that, okay, people will consider that as an option. I just feel like eventually everything's going to be so automated. It's going to be so normal. Like, get on your computer, plug in something to sell your house. It's going to be almost, I guess, the equivalency of the sites they have for wholesaling. And obviously there's that realtor element in contracts and everything else. I don't know. I guess I'll figure that out too. But I feel like that day is rapidly approaching, and especially with, quantum computing, it's just going to be unbelievable. It's going to be,
it's super exciting. Yeah, it's super exciting to plug some of that stuff in and start tinkering with it and see kind of what it can do for sure. So, well, tell people how they can find you, and is there anything that anyone out there listening can do to help you, as far as your business goes, sending you deals or buying your flips that you've got listed, or where can they see your work? They just kind of give people an idea of where they can come find you.
I mean, intenseproperties.com, and Intense Properties Home Buyers on Facebook. So that's my website, and then my Facebook page. Yeah, much like you guys. I mean, if someone has a deal and it crosses my desk, then yeah, I mean, I'll look at it if the numbers work, but otherwise, yeah, I mean, most of my stuff's just going to continue to be done by direct mail at this point.
Nice. Well, Mark, man, it's been awesome. Like I said, being new to the business, everything's like great information, just hearing about how people who have been in it a long time do their business and structure their day and structure their money. So, you've done it the way, just kind of a little bit of an old school way. Just keep the mailers going, just be consistent. I think the key for me is consistency, and I'm sure a lot of that you learned in the bodybuilding business. You just put one day in, you put another day in, you see a little bit of result, you put another day in, and you stack enough of those days on top of each other, and you're going to find success. And so,
it's boring. I think there's some of the stuff. It sounds exciting, but it's like, no, it's boring. You don't think I get bored? Sometimes I want to go maybe do something else. I mean, you just get to the point. I think once you start to have success in anything, you realize that, there's just certain things that you got to do. So, and it is what it is, part of it.
Man, kudos to you. That's a lot of years of being boring and not getting distracted. There's so many shiny objects out there, so many new seminars, so many the latest, greatest things, and especially with the internet and Instagram. It's really hard to pick a lane and stick to it. So kudos to you. I know it's been super successful for you. So, well, you guys know Tavis and I, we're the real estate heavyweights. I'm the Dallas Real Estate Guy on Instagram. Find me on Facebook, Ashton Hines. You can find Tavis mostly on Facebook, some on Instagram. He's Tavis Westbrook, Travis without the R. He's got Tavis Westbrook Designs. If you need something, you need some designs done for a future project, they can do CAD work. He can sit down with you and really kind of sketch out your dream of your renovation or anything you want to do inside the home. They can really move you along the process. He's great at that too. And if you have a deal out there, you might have to flip a coin. You can either send it to Mark or send it to us. When we have guests on here that do similar things, we can figure out. There's enough out there for everybody, I'm sure. So, man, Mark, thank you so much for your time. It's been awesome. And for you guys that are listening, check it out. This will be out next. Well, I don't have to say it. For you guys that are listening, pay attention for the next episode on Friday, where we come to you with a market update and the news and a little bit of a lighter take on the DFW real estate industry. And until then, we hope you have a great day. Talk to you soon.